Welcome to session 6 of Multicultural Ministry. This week is part 2 of Church Models of Inclusion. Last week we talked about the monocultural model and also the friendship model. And those two models, as you have gone through the lessons, you'll see that those monocultural churches are those churches with a single cultural expression. Friendship churches are those congregations or multiple congregations that share a single facility, but not necessarily blend together, where there's very little integration culturally. Now, prior to our discussion about congregations, we talked about the convergence of cultures, and we talked about cultural models for convergence of cultures: assimilation, primordialism, circumstantialism, and then also interculturality or neoculturalism. That's quite different. There we're talking about societies or individuals that are assumed into new cultural spaces. This is a description, last week and this week, is a description of how congregations come together, whether they are uh, monocultural churches, but two separate cultures blending together, two or more, blending together, and how they integrate, and that becomes a new cultural space for those church members. Last week, monocultural and friendship. This week, we're talking about partnership and the integrative model. Now, partnership churches takes blending a step further. That is where you have two or more congregations come together in a single space and sharing perhaps an event together or several events, evangelism, worship, and various cultural styles are expressed as each congregation expresses themselves the way they normally would in their own cultural style. The merging of cultures in this way takes into consideration things like power and class and economics, where those things become more of an issue in friendship churches, where space is kept separate. In a friendship church, ways are sought to blend, where each congregation has equal privilege and responsibility. However, they remain separate congregations. In integrative churches, this is the kind of church that blend these congregations into a single unit, whereas partnership churches do not necessarily mean the blending of those congregations together. Integrative churches are those congregations that decide to come and become actually one church group. And so it's quite different. It's important for these kinds of churches to highly value things like equity and plurality in terms of expression. Um, and so the core value there will promote a sense of openness and unity. So from that discussion, this week's lesson asks the question about multi-ethnic and multicultural, uh, or multiculturality. What is the difference? There are many churches that self-describe as multi-ethnic churches, but is being multi-ethnic being multicultural? And although culture is assumed in ethnicity, you can have a variety of ethnicities with a single culture. Remember, one is immutable uh, ethnicity, but culturality or culture is transitory. People can change cultures as they live life in various areas, as they acquire new knowledge and new ways of living. Ethnicity doesn't change. So we wrestle with that idea and those expressions in churches. And so I asked you several questions around the idea of ethnicity and culture. And then I asked you how you would define a multi-ethnic ministry. There are several descriptions provided, and then I'm asking you to define it yourself. The reading for this week is Quartz and Poole, Friendship at the Margins, pages 9 to 68. And the forum question or topic is As Iron Sharpens Iron. And the question I'm asking there is a question that missiologist Charles Kraft poses. And he asks, life is affected by rubbing against one another. And if that's true, how can you become a more effective media for cross-cultural ministry? Give an example from Scripture and from life. And I'll look forward to reading those posts, and I hope to see you or hear from you soon. God bless.